Thanks again for teaching our Hevruta. This week's Torah portion is Shemot. It is the beginning of the book of Exodus, and it is found on page 31 in our Hevruta booklet. It is 3.5 pages. I ask that you read the 3.5 pages, pick out 2 or 3 gems that really speak to you from these words, list 3 or 4 questions based on each Torah teaching, and also think of maybe a personal story that you'd be willing to share, and that's all you need to facilitate a great conversation about the Torah portion. This Torah portion has a lot to say about leadership. It starts out talking about how Pharaoh enslaves the Israelite people and orders 2 Hebrew midwives, Shifra and Puah, to kill all the baby boys that the Israelites have. Now, Shifra and Puah, they don't do what Pharaoh says. And in many ways, they're protesters. Pharaoh is the leader of the land. We might ask, what kind of leader is he that he wants all the baby boys killed? Doesn't really make sense if this is the labor force of the country, why he would have all the boys killed. So maybe there's paranoia. Maybe he had a prophecy that one of the boys would raise up and overthrow him. But Shifra and Puah protest this and risk their lives in order to do what is right. And so you might have a conversation about who are the protesters today and what are the causes that are worth protesting. We also have Miriam, Moses' sister, watching as he's placed in a basket and put in the Nile to protect him. What are our roles in protecting our siblings and others? Pharaoh's daughter who finds Moses, and we actually don't know Moses' original name. She names him Moses, one who's drawn from the water and takes care of him. There are a lot of women, a lot of heroines in this story surrounding Moses. Now, we also have the story of the burning bush. Some of the rabbis say that what's remarkable about Moses is that many people would walk by a bush that was burning and thinking that maybe it was just the sunlight hitting it, but he noticed everything. He was an observant person. So if we look at the gems of Torah, there's a really interesting, the first one's interesting. It says, the Torah words literally translated as who come to Egypt. It says, this is the fate of the Jewish people in the diaspora. They live in a place for an extended period of time, put down roots, and yet their neighbors consider them strangers. So who are the strangers in our land today? When we think about immigrants, they're first wave immigrants, but there are people who have been born in this country, whose families have been here for many, many generations. And because they look different, might still be considered strangers. So at what point are you no longer a stranger in your land? Is it when you serve in the army? Is it when you pay your taxes? And how do we welcome the stranger? So that's an interesting thing to talk about. If we go on, it talks about how the Torah doesn't at first mention Moses' parents' names. We later learn that their names are Amram and Yocheved. But it's interesting that we don't really know Moses' parents' names. And the teaching is that it's to teach us that in any household, there may be born a Moses, a Mozart, an Einstein. You know, you never know from what humble abode might come a genius that will change the world. Everyone has that capability. The other things is, in the end of the Gems of Torah section, the Olelet Ephraim says, the leader of the generation must feel every obstacle and every impediment on the road. This is talking about why God asks Moses to take off his shoes at the burning bush, so that his bare feet feel every thorn, every pebble, every spike, every coarseness in the road. He must feel the pain of his people and realize what is bothering them. That's a really interesting definition of leadership. Now, can we think of leaders who don't feel that pain, who the soles of their shoes are so thick that they don't actually feel what other people are feeling, the sharpness and the harshness of the road? And what are the children's definitions of a great leader? What do they think makes a leader? And the last section, Mida, talks a lot about humbleness. Moses is considered a very humble man, the most humble man that ever walked on the earth. And the rabbis teach that humbleness isn't about feeling small, it's just about knowing how much space to take up. So if you sit on a bench, how do you sit? Do you sit and, spread out and take up all the space? Do you make room for others? Do you scooch over so that more people can sit down? And humbleness is also about knowing when to occupy a lot of space. So a leader should occupy a lot of space, right? But if the leader occupies too much space, then they become a pharaoh. They become a dictator. And so there has to be a humbleness and a sense of knowing how much space to take up. It also talks in that section about take care lest you forget God. When you've eaten your fill and you have fine houses to live in, those are the times when you might forget God. That's a really interesting thing to talk about. Why is it that we're more likely to think about God when we're hungry and when we're in need, but when we're satiated and quenched and fulfilled, we don't think about God, we forget about God? So why do we do that? So those are a bunch of gems out of this week's Torah portion, and I hope I know you'll have great conversation. I wish I could be a part of every single Hevruta. Thank you.